Hope this is really fascinating for you guys. So hello, my name is Recio, and I am thrilled to be here. So again, let's make this as interactive as you'd like. Feel free to ask questions along the way and interrupt and tell me if I'm wrong, if you think I am. So a little bit about Salesforce. So Salesforce started in 1999 with a vision to transform the industry. And they went about this in 3 different really unique ways. The first one is that they started a whole new technology model. They're the ones who kind of came through with the advent of cloud computing, a multi-tenancy model. The second area is a whole new business model. Also, they are the ones who pioneered SaaS, so software as a service and using software as a subscription. And then the third one, which is the one that's really most exciting, the one that we talk about really the most and is hugely compelling to our employees, is the 1-1-1 model. And this happened at the very beginning, before we were ever profitable, before we ever even put out a product. And this 1-1-1 model is the philanthropy model. And it's based on 1% of our employees' time is basically available to give back to the community, to basically volunteer at any charity that they'd like. 1% of the company's equity is also given back to the community, and 1% of our products. So we have been wildly successful, as you can see. Just this year, we were welcomed into the Fortune 500, which is exciting for all of us. We're the 6th largest software company in the world. We were given an amazing award by Fortune, actually 2 of them. The first one was for the last 3 years, the most admired company. For the last 7 years, which is also extremely exciting for us, we've been given the award of one of the best places to work. And then Forbes has also given us some incredible awards around being the most innovative company for the last 4 years. So this success has led to some hyper growth. I joined Salesforce just 2.5 years ago, at the very beginning of 2013. And at the time, we had about 9,000 employees. And as you can see, we have since almost doubled. I mean, that's crazy. So can you only imagine, you know, the scale, the volume, the speed, and at the same time, what really kind of keeps me up at night is how do you grow at that pace without losing your soul? How do you make sure that you are really hiring the best, that you are hiring people who really embody your culture, and you're really hiring people who truly are there for the same, for the same reasons that the first people joined. So we had some real challenges on our hands, and I knew that we were going to need a little help to get us there. So analytics, again, I wish I could say that we were the very first to come through with this, but it was obvious that we needed to apply a little science to what we were up to do, what we needed to do. So we needed science to predict on who we needed to hire, how were we going to scale, who were we going to develop, and frankly, who might leave. We needed to stay in front of that. We couldn't wait until people left then to try to catch up. So if you look at, so we did a lot of studying, and Deloitte, 2015, did a capital trend study where they looked at and interviewed 3,300 companies in 106 countries. And this is what they came away with. Data and analytics are key to solving business and talent needs around engagement, around development, around training, and around recruitment. Companies who really invest in people analytics are really poised to outcompete and to outperform their competitors. And people analytics really proved to be the 2nd largest capability gap in companies, only 2nd to how to develop better leadership. So again, all the same problems that we were trying to solve. And so we thought to ourselves, well, how can we apply some science to this? So here we go. I'm going to give you some different examples of what we did and how we did it. So like any other situation, we really need to think through, what were we really trying to solve? At the end of the day, what was the hypothesis that we had? How are we going to go about collecting this data? What were we going to do? Like, how are we going to be able to prove a point? So much to be said out there, so much to collect. What was going to really be able to frame our narrative around this? How are we going to analyze this data? Like, once we had it all, what did it all mean? What was the story that was coming away from this? What were the actions? So, again, how do you be objective? When this comes away, sometimes it doesn't necessarily prove your point. Are you going to go back to the business and say, all right, we've got nothing? And then lastly, how are you going to measure? If you did put an action plan together, how were you going to measure that you really did move the needle? So this is kind of what we applied as we started to think through some of the issues that we were having. So I'm going to give you again, I'm going to walk you through a couple of different examples of what we did at Salesforce that has really resulted in our ability to scale. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the one I'm about to tell you, because I think it's not unique at all to Salesforce. But we do all of our development in San Francisco, the most competitive technical talent market in the world. And frankly, we were kind of getting our asses handed to us. We were starting to see some decline rates. We were starting to see really the costs going up. We were starting to see just a lot more competitive. I mean, there's no doubt that demand was outstripping our ability to be able to find great talent. So we went back to the business and we said, hey, we've got some issues here, and we think that we need to really diversify our location strategy. And they looked at me and they said, go hire more recruiters. Throw more people at it. And I was like, oh, all right. I mean, I like being told to hire more. That's kind of good. And then I was like, I'm not sure if that's going to work. And they said, well, you know what? Go hire better recruiters. You need to hire better recruiters. You hire more savvy recruiters. I'm like, oh, I think we're pretty savvy. I mean, we've gotten pretty far. And then they said, there's 1 million people in this valley. How can you tell me you can't bring me, another 2,000 this year? Certainly, you could do that. And I was like, all right. So that came with our hypothesis. I go back to my recruiters and they said, we've talked to everybody. I'm like, well, I don't know if you've talked to everybody. But they said, no, we've talked to everybody. So it became clear that we really needed to define what our addressable market was. What was it? Was it really 1 million people? So the way we went about that is we started to look at where are we losing talent to? Who's taking our folks? And again, it was kind of heartbreaking. We had to really look. And at the same time, where are we getting that talent? When people join us, where are they coming from? And that truly became the way to kind of ring fence what our addressable market truly, truly was. So we all agreed. So that was just huge in and of itself. Guess what? It wasn't 1 million people. It was 87,000 people. That's it. That's not a lot, really. We start thinking about it. I mean, out of those 87,000, in just technology alone, about 10,000 already work for us. So then we said, all right, well, of these 87,000, how many have we already talked to? How many have we interviewed? How many do we already have on our radar screen? How many individuals have declined us? And this is what was remarkable. We came through, and in San Francisco, 23%. That is a staggering amount when you think about the market penetration. We only want to hire the top 10. That's it. But already 23% had been touched already. So again, this was pretty compelling. And so we went back to the business and said, here are the facts. And all of a sudden, they're like, holy shit. Where else can we go, Anna? I'm like, now we're talking my language. So again, it really gave us a seat at the table to truly influence. For the first time ever, we were in the real estate discussions. We were really in those talent diversification discussions. And we made some recommendations. For example, we needed to open a South Bay office, or San Francisco exclusive. Maybe we needed to go to the South Bay. Maybe we need to go to Seattle or Vancouver. And again, I think that you're going to see some new offices, some new towers opening up here as a result of those discussions. And it's really exciting because we have gone into those other markets, and we're not seeing those decline rates. We're not seeing those competitive nature anymore. And we really led that discussion through data. Yeah?
How did you determine those 87,000 people? Because I'm dealing with the exact same issue.
Fantastic question. So we looked at our addressable market. And then by determining where were we losing talent to, as well as where were we gaining talent from. We also then cross-referenced all of those individuals through the hairiest, most insane algorithm through LinkedIn, and we cross-referenced it with our applicant tracking system. And that's how we were able to determine, of those 87,000 people, we talked to 23%.
So do you use bracketing, or do you have a specific applicant tracking system that you're using?
We use our proprietary system called Salesforce that we use that's based on our platform. But this is something that you can do on any applicant tracking system. The algorithm that we created with LinkedIn that basically allowed us to connect. These are the people that, this is our talent market, and then of those, how many have we actually already talked to? How many of them resided in our systems? That was an algorithm that we did. And the truth be told, I mean, because this really did, this was like very illuminating to our executives. I mean, this went all the way up to our senior leadership. Again, we're making property decisions and real estate decisions based on it. And the truth is that it was a brilliant intern that we hired for the summer who came through with that algorithm and worked with LinkedIn to create that cross-referencing. Okay. And I wish I could say it was me, but it wasn't. But it was genius. We applied the same science to sales. So the same exact situation was occurring. And sales at Salesforce is religion. I mean, this is the holy grail. I mean, it absolutely propels our growth. The more AEs, it's more feet on the street. It is all about revenue. And so this is the one metric, I mean, more so than any other hiring metric that our CEO and our executive team is looking at. And frankly, leader after leader in recruiting had really failed to deliver on time here. This was becoming a real pain point. The recruiting team was frustrated, the business was frustrated, and they just kept on saying, why can't you bring me more? And so once again, you can probably see it's kind of quiet back there, but you can see where we recruit from, where we were losing talent to, where we were gaining talent from. And once again, 28% in San Francisco. I mean, that is just huge penetration. But then you look at Boston, which is a tremendous city, only 4%. So again, it became really clear, and of course we did this across the country, that we needed to go in and start recruiting in different markets. And again, it completely changed the game. So being able to go and expand into different markets was really key. But we had to take it a step further. Because not only did we need to go into different markets, but we needed to think through, like my team was still saying, this organization is so biased. They seem to have this preference for, they have to have, software enterprise experience. It was like an insurance policy for our executives. If they didn't have software enterprise experience, they would just dismiss the resume no matter who it was. I mean, we could have brought them like Jesus Christ himself, and they would be like, nope, not good enough. Nope, no software experience, sorry, not gonna work for us. So, I mean, we were just like, are you kidding me? And they're like, oh, go find people in Boston. And we were like, no. Like how do you really know that really is a key to success? So once again, using data, we took a look at our top 100 executives, sales executives across the organization, and we found some fascinating, I mean fascinating facts. 34% of our top 100 didn't come from a software background. Isn't that amazing? You're like, where the hell did they come from and who hired them? Most of them had come through other parts of the organization, that got hired in other parts of the organization, had transferred into sales. And they had really risen to the top. And here it is. So we said, okay, well, what makes these guys tremendous? What makes them so good? Is it the fact that they don't have software experience? Well, not quite. But what we did find was that these individuals came from a monthly cadence of quota. So they were used to that pace, that fast pace of every single month. You got to deliver. And so that became really the #1 success criteria. The second piece was they all were power users of CRM. They all come from a customer relationship management background. They'd either used our product or had worked at a competitor, but they knew what it was like and they knew how to use it as a user, which again was also really, really key. And the last part of it is that they came trained in a philosophy of selling that we use called Sandler, or storytelling. It's kind of the way we go about interacting with our customers. So once again, I was able to go back to our recruiters and say, okay, you could hire now, not just in San Francisco, you go across the country, but in addition, when you present candidates, make sure they have these 3 success criteria, because we know that they're going to be successful in our environment. These are the individuals who are rising to the top. But again, we didn't stop there, because we always want to hire the very, very best, and we need to think through, how do we know we're hiring the best? We say we're hiring the best. We say, hey, we're the top 10%, but is that true? Like, do you really, doesn't every company say they have the top 10%? Like, how can we all have the top 10%? So once again, it's like, how do we really measure quality? And I found some fascinating, again, just anecdotally, I'm a data junkie. Like, I seriously love it. And what was illuminating to me was I would have recruiters present an account executive who met our earlier criteria, who we thought, was tremendous and walked on water. And we would have one part of the organization decline them. And they were always kind of like, a little nebulous as to why. And then that same candidate would be presented in the same organization, but just in a different part. And guess what? They got hired. Doesn't that happen to you guys? Yeah, so you're like, okay, what's going on here, right? And so we knew that we had some problems. We also had a lot of criticism, about just the standard of quality. How do we know that, those people in APAC are really hiring to the same level as us here in AMER? Our standards are so high here, right? And so, of course, people in APAC were like, of course we're hiring the very best. But again, nobody could really tell us why and how. So we took a look at our top 100 again. And we said, what are the traits that they have that make them dynamite? And we came away for our commercial side of the house as well as our enterprise side of the house. And we created assessment questions for each of these organizations. And what's incredible about it is we rolled this out, which let me tell you was like herding cats to do this globally. But it's created a global standard of what it is to work at Salesforce and what that quality bar looks like. And more importantly, it's really mitigated that unconscious bias. It was no longer, I think he's great because Joe referred him and Joe's a buddy of mine. It really was like, well, how did they do? Like, did you really interview them against these success criteria? We now are at a point now where we can look back and go back for a year and say the people who did best with business acumen, the people who scored the highest, turns out that they're the ones who are performing the strongest in the organization. The people who really did best with high integrity, frankly, it's not a variable. It really shows nothing there that they're going to do better or do worse in the organization. And not just that, but it's really given me a whole different perspective on how to measure my recruiters. It's not about just getting butts and seats now, which quite frankly, that's what it was. It's about the quality of that butt. Like, are these people really doing well? Are they thriving in our environment? Are they attaining? How well are they going to do in their lifespan and their tenure at the company? So we really do now have, a way and a lens to be able to measure quality.
Were you doing some assessments too?
Oh, yeah.
To measure in that, so in terms of the candidate would be writing tests or psychological tests, or how did you do the assessments?
No assessments on the sales side. Okay. On the tech side, we do have a programming test.
So no psychological. No psychological.
We assume they're all crazy.
Yeah. Okay. The crazier, the better. Okay.
That's just the baseline there.
Okay. So how do you measure high integrity? How did you define that and suss out that this individual has high integrity, for example?
Sure.
Qualitative.
That's exactly right.
metric.
So what we do have is we have a series of about 40 different questions that assess each of these different categories. And then before an interview, the person interviewing is referenced to that, and they pick their, whatever 3 questions that they want to ask. And then they give them sort of like, hey, this is what a proper answer looks like. This is what an example of what a really good answer should be framed. And then they're rated, and it's not a 1 through 5, because what we found when we first did it is that everybody gave everybody 4s. And they were like, well, that doesn't really tell us very much. So then when we force people to stack rank, out of these 7, where do they think the person did best? And so as a result, it gave us, again, a predictive lens to be able to look back anecdotally 6 months from now. I could tell you who my best hiring managers are, who my best interviewers are, as well as who my best recruiters are, and again, not by just the butt is in the seat. So again, it's been really great for us. In the back.
Hi there.
Hi.
So defining the addressable markets for salespeople, I think is really interesting. But as we all know, great salespeople are just as hard to hire as a great engineer, because they're raking in the dough, they're closing deals. It's always coming, it's always coming. So do you take it one step further from a data perspective? And how do you know inside of that addressable market how many salespeople are actually top performers, and how do you measure your nurturing of those folks, because you have to do that for long periods of time to kind of get them finally across the line. At least from my experience, they don't just flip over, in a month. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of care and feeding into that cultivation process. I will say that Salesforce has got a hell of a value proposition. We're #1 in our market. We're growing at 30%. We lead the market on our Sales Cloud, on our Service Cloud, and at the end of the day, salespeople, they want to win. They want to work for #1, and so it's pretty compelling. In terms of an assessment piece, we do assess. We assess their track record, their attainment, their W-2, how well they're doing. We have a really good sense, who our top people are, and that's who we're talent mapping against. And then, of course, we're not just hiring them. We're really truly making sure that they're going to fit into our organization. All right. So you're probably asking, all right, so now you've covered the tech side, you've covered the sales side, but what about those tremendous individuals who are truly doing the heavy lifting, who are truly, the rock of the company? And again, what are you doing for them? So for those individuals, we have a culture ambassador, and we're doing this specifically for our senior positions. And what this means is we're really absolutely interviewing people against our culture. And our culture is one of customer success. It's one of passion and conviction. It's one of getting things done and doing that in a collaborative way. And this, I got to tell you, was super provocative. When we introduced this program, it was truly like a turd in the punch bowl. I mean, it was like, people were like, what? What are you doing? So we would take an individual, in our marketing organization, a finalist, and we'd say, great, now you have to go interview with somebody in IT. And that person, that culture ambassador, has vetoing power. Those managers were like, you got to be kidding me. But again, as provocative as it was, it's really turned out to be a hugely successful program, both for the candidate and their candidate experience, as well as for our hiring managers. Because again, you're getting that buy-in cross-functionally, and you're getting the buy-in based on the right values. And most importantly, that candidate gets perspective outside of the organization. They know that we're not just being like seduced and wine and dined by that particular group. Now they get a chance to ask the same questions as somebody else totally unfamiliar with the role that they're interviewing for, because now they're not interviewing based on their track record. They're not being interviewed based on their pedigree or their school. They're just being interviewed, frankly, on, are they a great person for our culture? Are they likable? Is this person a good communicator? And I think a lot of candidates, and we've gotten so many nice notes from our candidates saying, I really enjoyed that. Thank you for that perspective. So that's what we're doing for the other side of the house as well, which has been, again, a really positive program. And so lastly, just want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming up. Yeah?
Sorry, can you give some examples of what the culture ambassadors ask?
Yeah. Can you give some examples of the questions the culture ambassadors ask?
They totally range. But again, it's really that's probably more of an informal discussion about what they've done cross-functionally, what their communication style is. There's a lot of behavioral questions that are asked at that point. But again, they're assessing around passion, about being disruptive, about being innovative, and about really the team side of the house. We've got a lot of things that we're starting to think about. And one of the things that we're trying to stay ahead now is how do we start to predict attrition before it's happened and get in front of it? Because at the end of the day, if I could save you from leaving, then that's just one less rec that we have to fill. And imagine, again, the cost savings to the company. So some of the things that we're just starting to look at now is, what's the level of achievement in terms of, quota attainment? What's the level of open opportunities? And then do we see like a flurry of opportunities that are starting to open up? Sometimes that can be a sign of somebody kind of flailing a little bit. And how do we do this in an ethical and in a moral way without invading, their personal, information, without going into social media? But how do we really start to get a sense, of, how an employee is doing? How do we intervene? And unfortunately, sometimes we do lose folks. And if we do, how do we get in front of that so that we can, in essence, start to recruit the replacement before they actually leave? So those are some of the things that we're looking at going forward. So where are we today? Well, I got to tell you, we are delivering, and we're excited to be doing that. So again, it's exciting that we are hiring almost 6,000 people a year. We just wrapped up a quarter with 1,500 external hires, poised to do that again here in Q3. And we are hitting our targets, so it's pretty exciting. That's it for me.